Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield, and it is Ledgestone Week. Yes, if you're listening to this, it means that Ledgestone may have already even started. We're going to be rocking and rolling for a 4-day tournament this week, the rare 4-day special on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. It's happening in Peoria, Illinois, and it's always an exciting tournament with a lot of money on the line. That's one of the big defining features of this event. Josh, we've had a lot of disc golf over the last couple of weeks. Are you feeling overloaded, or are you ready to tune back in and watch some more this weekend?
I always look forward to Ledgestone. It's one of the first tournaments that I ever watched when I first started watching professional disc golf, following it on Jomez 5-6 years ago. And Northwoods Gold, now no longer a course that's going to be in, we'll talk about that, was a course that I have gone back and watched Jomez videos of past years just on the Northwoods Gold course, because I love watching that course. And I love watching the par 6, as Big Germ affectionately refers to it as. So I think the hole 15, I believe, just the incredibly long, difficult hole.
I think it's
Is it 12? I think you're right.
I know.
I think you're right. About. I think it is 12.
Insanely long tunnel shots forever.
And Big Germ refers to it on one of the years as the only par 6 in disc golf, and he hates it. I love watching it. I love watching Ledgestone, so I'm thrilled. I can understand the burnout feeling, but you should be hyped about Ledgestone.
You're not feeling it. No, that's good. I'm glad we have this stretch run here. It's pretty crazy. Yes, you're right. There will be no Northwoods Gold this year. They're playing a new layout, Northwoods Black, and we're going to talk with Nate Heinold, TD, about some of the changes and what to expect from this new course, which is reportedly extremely difficult. So we'll get to more on that in a bit. Again, MPO will play 2 rounds at Northwood. That's their second and third rounds. Rounds 1 and 4 will be at Lake Eureka, where typically the MPO has played over the last few years. FPO will play rounds 1 and 4 at Northwood Black on the shorter layout, and they will play rounds 2 and 3 on Sunset Hills, which, by the way, is one of the best FPO courses on tour. So that's exciting. This is a really, if you're an FPO fan, this is a great tournament to watch, because you get, we'll see how the Northwood Black plays, but Sunset Hills is it's a great way to tune in and watch. A lot of birdies out there. A lot of, it's on a golf course layout, but smartly designed, and it should be a lot of fun. I wish we could see Kristen Tatar here still competing, but unfortunately it won't be so.
Charlie, I was very tempted to stick her in my top 5 picks anyway, just out of spite, because I don't want it to be over.
A lot of memes this week. The FPO field bought Kristen Tatar's plane ticket back to Europe. A lot of memes. Yeah. But so let's get right into it here. We're going to talk with Nate Heinold. And when we come back, we'll break down some more of the tournament, get you ready for the weekend, make our picks, of course. And we've also got some mailbag. We got some mail to open up. Thanks to everybody who sends in their mail. You can send us your mail at upshot@ultiworld.com. And be sure to tune in for our subscriber bonus segment as well. In our sub bonus segment this week, we're going to be tackling non-manufacturer endorsement deals and sponsorships, and how that is starting to impact the market more, and what it could mean for the future in terms of not having all of the eggs being in one basket for players on their sponsorship side of things. So you can become a subscriber for less than $4 a month at discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. Without further ado, let's talk to Nate Heinold. You're listening to The Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Well, you can go on to pounddiscgolf.com right now, and you can get yourself a pre-ordered Rainfly for your Octothorpe or your Carlton, and everybody can get one. right? Go in there, you get the pre-order in, and you're going to get that rainfly. They've been out of stock for a long time. So if you're already a proud owner of a pound bag, get yourself a rainfly. Make sure you keep your disc nice and dry when you're out there and the thunderstorms pop up. Now, if you're looking for a bag, well, you're going to have to keep waiting. Keep an eye on their social media for the drops. All of the custom stuff at the start of August already sold out. And you know that's how it goes. When you're selling the best bags in the sport, they sell out quick. So check it all out, pounddiscgolf.com. Joining us now on the Upshot is the TD of the Ledgestone Insurance Open, Nate Heinold. Nate, welcome back. How are you?
I am wide awake.
Early morning start for us all today. Thanks for making the time. I know you've got a lot on your plate, so we'll try to keep this crisp today. How are things going as you get ready for the start of the tournament tomorrow?
Yeah, we're looking really good. It's the courses are looking great. The weather looks very promising. Everything is in tip-top shape here. Obviously, with 12 courses going on, including the AM side, it's not complicated at all. So,
are you worried about it getting too big and like unwieldy, given all of the course, management and logistics that you have to deal with?
I'm not worried about it, but it's definitely the top priority every year to make sure that the pros feel like they're taken care of, but then the AMs that come that help fuel all the money we're able to give the pros by buying all of this stuff here, and supporting our efforts with charity. So that's on the top of my mind to make sure that the players we have here don't feel like they're not getting the bang for their buck. And so far, I think we've done a great job. So
MVP Open runs an amateur weekend that is months before the pro side. What's the decision making behind keeping the AMs at the pro event, given just the size of the tournaments you run both on the pro and AM side?
Yeah, it's mainly there's a different feel in the air when you have all of these professional players here as well. So for the amateurs, that come, for them to come out in full force last night for a Yulee signing with a massive line, we'd get that at a pro-only event because you'd have spectators still. But there is something special for the amateurs to be able to be here with the pros. And honestly, the main reason is that I have 74 paid staff members. Many of them come from out of this area. And so getting them here twice or 2 weeks of the year would just not be possible, to be honest.
74 paid staff. That's got to be the most at any disc golf tournament. Okay. Do you know that this year's payout and added cash numbers yet?
I do, yeah. The added cash, if I include the A-tier side, is it's probably 80-something thousand. Let me go look here at the payout file. I can tell you exactly. So I just beefed it up a little bit. Jeff was like, hey, it'd be cool if you got to $10,000 for MPO first place and then this amount for FPO. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So, so I added an extra $5,000. So I think we're going to be, let's see here. We're just over 80,000, it looks like.
And how about just for the pro divisions?
75, I think.
Wow. And total purse then is going to be coming up on what, 200,000 probably?
No, because I think it's 135-ish, just because you look at 210 players paying an average of that. So yeah, it's probably 130,000.
Got it.
Range.
Wow. So how much money comes from the insurance company Ledgestone towards this event? Like, is that 5,000 that you're talking about? Is that like out of your pocket, basically?
Yeah, nothing. Yes, it is. So nothing comes from the insurance company. I'm an employee of the insurance company, and I have a stake in the company, but they don't actually sponsor the event per se. We just use the name really. And so nothing actually comes from that side of the business, to be honest.
Why do you choose to use the name without the sponsorship? Couldn't you get a title sponsor that maybe would give you some extra cash? Is there a benefit to using Ledgestone?
Yeah, I mean, so it is, I work for Ledgestone, and I have a stake in the company to where I'm still benefited by using that name, but the title sponsor is essentially Discraft, right? So, they're the ones that fork over a ton of money to sponsor the event. So really, Ledgestone and Discraft are co-title sponsors, but in reality, Discraft is the one that puts that kind of effort into it. The Ledgestone sponsorship value is really my time, to be honest. So me spending the time to run the tournament is the sponsorship, and that's worth a lot of money just because I spend half my year on the event. So
let's talk about Northwoods Black. It only has 6 of the original holes from an already very difficult course that is now harder. So tell us a little bit. I mean, changing that many holes, that's a lot to change on a course that was already well regarded and very difficult. Why change so much and make an even harder layout?
Yeah, and I'm still trying to count. I was talking last night, like someone said 5, someone said 6. So the front 9 is completely new. 10 and 11 and 12 are existing. And then 13 and 14 are new. 15 through 17 are existing. So yes, it is 6 holes. So sorry, I had to do the math. But the reason for changing is when we got the bid for 2019 Pro Worlds, I had the idea to do the gold course, and I threw the design idea out to the other 2 designers, which kind of cut into the current existing course out there. And so we basically chopped up what was a white level course to make this gold course with the intention we'd always go back to the white course. The gold course went on the ground. People loved it. And I kind of talked to Kip Taufer, who was kind of the lead architect. And we agreed that, yeah, we don't want to get rid of the gold course. But obviously the guy who built the original course wanted his course back. And so that's when the idea for the black course came about, just so we could kind of keep the 2 courses there. So right now we now have a blue level course, and then we have the black diamond. I mean, it's something above black, to be honest, in terms of the over par, to comparison to 1,000 rated. But that was kind of the concept of why we did that.
Is Northwoods Black then the hardest course in the country or in the world?
I would legitimately say it is. So, and I've had many top pros tell me that. I believe somebody could win Ledgestone on the MPO side and shoot over par one of those 2 rounds out there, to be honest. So,
all right. So let me throw it out there. This week's over under, and I want Nate to answer too. 5 under best round at Northwoods Black. Let's call it 5.5.
I'll let you guys go first.
Josh, you're up.
I was like, oh yes, I'm just gonna take whatever Nate takes. 5.5. What is 1,000 rated shoot, Nate?
Probably 6 over.
6 over. Holy cow. I am taking the under, which means I think it's going to be 5 under or worse. Than that.
Necessarily, then I take the over. Nate, what say you?
Yeah, I'll take the over. We have 170 MPO players. They're going to get 2 cracks at it. When you asked me what the winning score at Deaglo was going to be for MPO, I was 1 stroke off. I was way off for FPO because they all, Paige and Kristen just shredded it, and they're amazing. So, but I'll say the Friday, Saturday MPO round, the best 2-day score, I would say, is going to be 8 or 9 under. So somebody will shoot 6 or 7, and then maybe a 2 or a 3. So someone's going to shoot 8 to 10 under over the 2 days at Northwood Black.
So 6 to 7 under, that would be what? So it's got to be somewhere close to like 1070, 1080 rated?
Probably.
No, because it's only going to be like 5 points a stroke. So
Okay.
it's going to be really hard to shoot a really high rated round there. In fact, almost impossible to be above 1080, because I will say this: nobody will shoot double digits. There's just way too many. There's way too many holes, ever. So I mean, you'd have to be essentially perfect. And the whole concept behind the black course is, a lot of disc golf holes just let you spray on a par 4 and still make birdie. If you spray it here, you're going to make bogey unless you throw a miraculous shot.
What's the OB rough off the fairway situation?
Yeah, the fairways are actually pretty wide. There's not a lot of OB on the course. It's mostly natural OB. So hole 1 has OB off of park property, and then there's no more OB until you get to, honestly, probably the back 9 to hole 14 off of park property, which doesn't really come into play. 15 has it on the left side, 17 has it on the left side, and that's about it. So there will be very few OB throws, to be honest. There will be a lot of natural OB throws when you're in the jungle and you got to pitch back in the fairway.
What courses are the women playing this weekend?
Yeah, so they'll play the short layout at Northwood Black, which I talked to a few players yesterday on the FPO side, and they're thinking around par is going to be a great score, and I agree with that. And then they'll play Sunset Hills, which for them, we've seen some of them shoot double digits under par, and that course is not easy, especially if it's windy. And so they're playing those two courses.
And when you designed Northwoods Black, were you specifically that shorter layout designing it with the understanding that there was going to be an FPO tournament there as well?
Yeah, when Kip and I were looking at the short tees, we definitely were looking at specifically FPO only. I wasn't even looking at AMTs or whatever. It was more of a MPOT and an FPOT. And some holes don't have an FPOT, and they could use one like hole 1 or hole 8, but they're such beautiful downhill par 3s that I hate, taking the women off of a great tee just to make it maybe a little more fair to par. Hole 5 at D-Glow comes to mind, when I could have put the tee at the bottom of the hill, but that hole was kind of iconic, and I don't think they would have appreciated walking down the hill and throwing on a flat line instead of throwing downhill.
Got it. So given that you have such a large AM tournament, are you still going to have a lot of spectators? Because it seems like the kind of thing where like all of your spectators are playing in the event, which maybe isn't a bad thing, but we've seen a lot of spectators showing up at other tournaments so far this year. I'm curious how that is shaping up so far.
Yeah, I think we'll have a lot of spectators. So at D-Glow, we ran a big AM side as well, and we had 2,000 spectators on the final day. Almost none of them were players. So I do think that we're going to have very large crowds, especially at Eureka. There's more restrictions at Northwood in terms of spectators, but at Eureka, I would not be surprised on Sunday if we have 2,000 people or more.
I think the size of the tournament, as well as the spectators, and just the feel of Ledgestone every year lends itself to not quite major status, but close. Like Ledgestone feels like one of the premier events on tour and one of the most important stops of the entire year. What is it that gives Ledgestone that feel?
Obviously, we really take care of the pros in terms of the women get 4 meals. The MPO players obviously get catered to as well in terms of everything we do on the putting out water and Gatorade and snacks for them on both sides and the FPO side. The added cash is, there's only a few tournaments that rival that in terms of maybe Worlds or the Pro Tour Championship. No one's ever going to come out here and say the courses aren't ready. We don't mark OB with marking flags, we're using white stakes with string, or we're using rope with string, and it's tight and it's straight, and we whack our tee pads, we mulch them, we make sure everything looks perfect. And so I think all of those things lend the credence to we're doing something right. I mean, we spent $50,000 this year just on course marketing. And so in terms of signage and everything else, that's the bill. So, and so it looks like a professional event, even if some people don't like my Discraft characters on the water tower, which is kind of an inside joke, but, we think it looks great. So
the connection with Discraft here, like, have you felt guilty at all this year as, you roll out these giant Ledgestone drops and get, I don't even know, many thousands of discs from Discraft while, you have retailers scraping to get anything, a box with stuff they don't even know what's in it? I've heard some grumbling around about this. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I released 150,000 discs this year for vendors to purchase, and then we had all of our releases. And so we have a Ledgestone vendor program where they can buy vendor released discs. But yeah, I don't feel guilty, to be honest, only because I know that we're putting it back into the courses. We've spent $40,000 on Northwood Black. We are going to give a record amount of money to charity, maybe approaching $200,000. So we have a massive pro purse. The player packs on the AM side, when we fulfill a player pack per person, we lose money, right? They pay $160 to get in this event. They're getting a bag or a Zuka cart, and I don't get those for free. And so, yeah, I don't buy them at retail, but I don't buy them at the manufacturer cost. And they're getting 4 discs and a Grip 6 belt and, other things. And so, the tournament is actually really a loss leader. We don't make money off the tournament at all. In fact, we lose a considerable amount of money. Where it comes back to us is the merchandise, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, how much money do you think you've made selling Ledgestone discs this year?
Even if I knew the answer, I probably wouldn't say it. So
fair enough.
But I mean, it's a lot, but it goes back into the event. So,
if you can, I just jump in real quick, Charlie, with that. You may not be able to tell us, but after all the bills are paid, your staff, the courses, the charity check, the amateur packs, all of it, you are turning a profit thanks to your vendor program and your Ledgestone merchandise and the event as a whole?
Yeah, we do not lose money on the event anymore. I used to lose money, even as recently as probably 2018, 2016. I lost money because I got married and I wasn't able to focus as much on the event finance side. And Discraft stepped up at the last second and helped me out a little bit. But yeah, we do not lose money on the event when I take into it. Sorry, we lose money in the event. The pro shop more than makes up the difference, basically.
Got it.
Hopefully, we're not done yet with the event, so hopefully it does, to be honest. So, but I will say this: our event budget is well over 7 figures. So,
okay, one last quick question about Northwoods. There were some big backup problems at Worlds on the gold course. Do you anticipate those being an issue on the black course as well?
Yes. We're going to have backups. There's no question about it. What I did compared to that layout, which we used last year as well, we eliminated the bottom feeders like me that can't really play, even though actually I would qualify by like 2 points. But if you're below 970, you're probably not going to play Ledgestone, so that helps a little bit. And then we have a lot of spotters on the course this year, a lot of spotters. So we're not going to have, knock on wood, we shouldn't have a lot of lost discs and, that kind of stuff. So I think we have 275 volunteers for Ledgestone this year, which I think is probably a record as well.
Okay, just shifting gears real quick, and then we'll let you go. You have some new colleagues on the board of directors. Thoughts on Leah Sinigini, David Schreff, and Wilbur Wallace?
Yeah, Wilbur is a local here, and so I've known Wilbur for a long time, comes from the Wallace family. His parents are mom and old man who obviously are beloved members of the disc golf community. So Wilbur is a local. He happens to be on my, one of my AM course directors. So it'll be nice to have another Illinois person on there. David Schreff, I actually talked to just a few days ago, and he is very impressive. So obviously, I'm a business person. He has a business background, so I'm excited to work with him. I have not met Leah yet, and I was planning on talking to her sometime this week because she is playing Ledgestone.
Awesome. All right. Anything else, Josh?
That's it for me.
All right. Thanks so much, Nate. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Nate Heinold with us here on the Upshot. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Upshot. Thanks again to Nate for taking some time with us day before the event. And of course, you're listening to this on Thursday, so the event is now starting. And, really, I thought Nate had some very interesting things to say. Like, the economics of this tournament are interesting. The fact that there's going to be a $10,000 payout in MPO is very interesting. The enormous amount of added cash. I mean, that blows away what we've seen on tour this year. What he said, 75,000 for the pro side of things, which is, that's an enormous amount of money. And like, I think this is just going to start to, it's going to keep ramping up every year, Josh. Ledgestone has kind of put itself in this position where there's an expectation of enormous and deep payouts. And I guess they're still figuring out a way to make money.
It's a really odd tournament structure in terms of the economic side of it, because I've often thought like, oh, Nate Heinold, he's the example of like who you get as a TD because he runs events well, and you get a TD like Nate Heinold who runs it, and we pay him, and you get a tournament that really goes well. And I'm not like backing out on that, but this is a weird economic structure that can't be replicated. I don't know if at all. And if it is, at very few places could it actually happen. Because, when he said that there's the $75,000 added cash, you responded, oh, so you've got to be up in like the $200,000 range for the purse. And he's like, no, like 135. And like, that's still great, but that's not blowing everything out of the water. I think all that added cash comes from the fact that players packs, as he pointed out, are several $100s worth of value. I mean, he's giving away Zuka carts. Like, I need to go to Ledgestone. The money from the pro shop, I think, is technically his added cash. But it's still, so it's, he has like he said, he's got 100,000 discs that he's getting from Discraft while nobody else can. And that's not to say he's not got his vendor program, but it's a very unique relationship with Discraft. And because of it, the economic structure is just all over the place. But it makes money. So.
And they sell those discs, man. It's crazy. Like, they really do get the sort of red carpet treatment. Like, a lot of people you can't get customs right now from Discraft, and yet there's like these insane, super rare like stamp and plastic combos that Ledgestone gets. I mean, I'm still looking for. A couple years ago, Ledgestone they had, I forget what disc it was, but it had the mini Ultrastar stamp. The Ultrastar is the ultimate disc that Discraft makes. That's sort of 98% adoption rate in Ultimate. It's like pretty much the equipment that's used. And they had the mini stamp in the middle of a white disc. And I've tried to, I went to Discraft. I was like, hey, I want to order these kinds of discs. And they said, no, we don't do that. People were getting confused, so you can't get that. And I'm like, why can't I get it, but they can get it? So somebody, scout me your Ultrastar stamped disc for some egregious amount of money. Email me, charlie@ultiworld.com. But yeah, I mean, I think it's not just that they get a lot of discs, it's that they've, there's an eye for design. I don't know who's working up all of the designs and like building all the hype around it, but like people really want to get their hands on these discs, and as a result, they can sell for premium prices, and they're, building hype around the event by like giving away enormous amounts of stuff in the players pack for the AMs, and the pros are happy to go. Like, even in years when this tournament was sort of looked at as like the courses were like a little weak and it wasn't everybody's favorite place to play. Everyone still went because the payouts were so good. And like that is now generated to the point where like you have to go to Ledgestone, and now they've, the courses have improved over time, and now they've built the Northwood and they have this new one. And so interesting tournament.
I'm definitely excited for Northwoods Black. Anytime a course claims to be the hardest course on tour, I am excited to see if it gets challenged. I took the over at the Portland Open double digits and was right when Eagle slayed it with a 13 under par. I don't know if I'm being too conservative on this one, but Northwood seems to have an ability to mess people up in a way that no other course on tour does. And if it's even harder, then I'm hoping that we see golf scores on MPO's site at Northwoods Black.
Well, I feel good that Nate's on my side on this one. You're up 3-2, right? In the over-under contest?
I think it's 4-3. But
4-3.
Yeah, I think I've got a one week lead.
You're up 1 after this past week.
Yeah.
I got robbed. I keep getting robbed. So, okay, let's turn our attention to our picks. Oh, you got something else.
I have one question. It's not going to affect this time. For our over-under, is this in regulation? Like, what happens if they go to a playoff if Northwoods Black was, like, the final hole, like, course? Playoff
I think the playoff is, even in like, PDGA world, it's considered separate. So it's not like overtime in a basketball game, which would affect the over-under.
Right. Okay. That's what I thought. I wanted to, because we almost needed that at the preserve. And so I'm glad we didn't, and I'm glad we cleared it up ahead of time.
Regulation 18.
Okay. All right. That's what I figured.
Okay. So let's get to our picks. We quickly will go through last week. Shout out to Josh for correctly picking that Kristen Tatar would win it in FPO. He gets a 5-point bonus for that. We each had 4 of our 5 picks correct in the FPO side. So we had Pierce, Tatar, Allen, and Weiss. I was wrong on Missy Gannon, and Josh was wrong on Deanne Carey. Although Deanne Carey was looking like she was going to put herself in a good position early in the tournament. We each only got 1 right in MPO. Wow. We had Eagle. And inexplicably, neither of us included Paul or Ricky in our picks. And, of course, they dominated. Now, I don't think anybody was going to pick Gannon Burr in the top 5. Matty O, you could see it. Yeah. But, it's a borderline pick. So, anyway, we score equally on total picks, but Josh gets the 5-point bonus for picking the winner. So, it is now Josh 15, Charlie 10 as we head into this week's picks. And let's dive in. And I don't think I mentioned this. Last year's winners, Ricky Wysocki and Katrina Allen, who've had some historic success at this tournament. Ricky dominating in 2020. Had a... Paul McBeth shot a 1097 rated final round. And Ricky was like, oh, no problem. I'll shoot 1090 and hold on to my 8-stroke win. So... easy money for Ricky Wysocki. And then Katrina Allen winning by 3 strokes over Paige Pierce. And that was... It wasn't as close as it sounds. She was up 11 strokes heading into the final round. Played really poorly, but had enough of a cushion that it didn't really matter. So Kat and Ricky hope to repeat this year. And we'll see if they end up in our picks. Josh, take it away.
All right. So I'll start on FPO. In 5th place, I've got Jessica Weiss again. Every time I've picked her so far, she's been in the top 5. So, I don't see any reason that she couldn't keep playing. She's playing very well right now. So, I got Jessica Weiss in number 5. I've got Haley King in number 4. And, this one, I think that Haley King is one of the most talented players on tour. I worry about her consistency on a course like Northwoods. Even though it's on a shorter layout, I think that might get to her. Sarah Hokum in number 3. This feels like a Sarah Hokum course. She's played well here in the past. I have Katrina in number 2. And that means Paige Pierce number 1. Remember, she's played great during the Kristen Tatar stretch. We talked about it for anybody else's standards. It's been really good. And I think that Paige is just going to be so elated that Kristen's gone that she has to be playing better now because of it.
All right, hard to find fault with those picks. I have Sarah Hokum at number 5. I have Heather Young at number 4. Heather Young played very well here last year. She is in the field. Excited to have Heather back playing on tour. Paige Pierce at number 3 for me. Katrina Allen at number 2 for me. And that means that I have Haley King in the 1 spot. And I'll admit, this is a bit of a, I'm taking a bit of a flyer here, but I think Haley King has had a tendency this season to she's playing well, finishing in the top 5, but not really threatening for the win. And then boom, she'll just win a tournament out, kind of out of nowhere. Like she won at Texas State's. And then she won at DDO. I feel like this is the kind of pair of courses here with the Northwoods and the Sunset where Haley can be really successful. I think you could argue, well, but look at Worlds. I actually think Haley King was not that far away from playing really well at Worlds. It was just like a couple errors here and there, and maybe that will sink her this week too. But I got a feeling. I'm going with Haley King. Over on the MPO side, it gets harder every week. We went 1 for 5 last week, which shows you how competitive it's become. I'm taking Nate Sexton, 2018 Ledgestone champ, in my 5th spot. And he didn't play here last year. So looking forward to seeing Nate back. Is this his first tournament since Worlds, or did he play earlier? No, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Anyway, Chris Dickerson in the 4 spot. I think this is the, setting where he can play really well. Like, we get some woods. And he's actually been sneaky good, just not in contention for wins. Kevin Jones in the 3 spot for me this week. I really like the way he's been throwing the disc lately. And I've got Paul McBeth in the 2 spot and Ricky Wysocki to repeat as the champ. I mean, look, Ricky found the range with the putter last week. Looked great. And we're going back to courses where he's clearly comfortable and dominated last year. I think it's an easy pick. I think, the people he's been competing with the most, Eagle, Paul. I think Paul could absolutely win this tournament, but I would be surprised if Eagle did.
I think they're good picks. Sexton did play the Preserve. He took 42nd.
Oh, wow.
So
maybe that's why I didn't know he was there.
Coming off a bad weekend, but no reason he couldn't bounce back here. I think they're all good picks. I have shuffled my picks and pulled people out and stuck them back in, several of whom are on your list that are not on mine now. I got Adam Hammis in the 5th place. These kind of woods, he plays well. I think Lake Eureka will set up well for him. He putts like a monster. I no reason Adam Hammis can't do well. I have Ricky in the 4. I think Ricky's going to cool off a little bit. I don't have any reason about why that's the case. Just a gut feeling. He may win it, so I may be very wrong about it. But I have James Proctor in the 3.
That's a spicy one.
A little bit spicy, but he plays well. I think I never have thought of James Proctor as being this type of course kind of guy. Like, he just feels like an all around great player. Who we just don't get to see on tour as much. So I don't see any reason why he couldn't kill it here. I have Chris Dickerson in the 2 spot. I think Chris Dickerson is going to play well. Like, he does play well here.
He's due to heat up. I mean, that's the thing about Chris Dickerson. Like,
I said that about Calvin. So
yeah, that's true.
But I wanted to say the exact same phrase. Like, I was like, Chris Dickerson's due. And then I was like, I said that about Calvin. And then I still sucked at picks. So it doesn't mean anything. But I have Paul McBeth winning it. He looked great at Preserve, and the missed putt on 16 with the drive on 18 is really what kept him out. But 2 shots, and we're talking about Ricky, Eagle, and Paul on the 18th hole, not just Ricky and Eagle. So I think Paul is in great position to take this tournament down.
Well, there you go. So all different picks at the top this week. I've got Ricky and Wysocki and Haley King. Josh has Paul McBeth and Paige Pierce going back to the 5X well. No 6X in the mix. Think about that. Think about how crazy Worlds was. Wow. All right, let's turn our attention to some mail. Time for us to open up some mail. We always appreciate hearing from you. So thank you for tuning in. And we'll start with something that we were talking about on the Tuesday show. And it relates to commentary. This is from Hans. One thing that I really think we should keep in mind when discussing commentating and commentators is the experience of digesting the sport, especially live disc golf, in the audio format. I believe Josh touched on this with traveling and following the preserve. I often simply tune into the Disc Golf Network with a pair of Bluetooth headphones and listen to the audio while working my job in a wood shop. I don't necessarily have the time to sit down and watch a 3 to 4 hour round of live golf. I depend on the commentators to paint a picture of the action in conjunction with the sounds of the course to imagine what is going on in the present. I remember my childhood sitting with adults and listening to baseball on the radio. The crack of the bat, roar of the crowd, and banter of the announcer were just as compelling as any TV image. Disc golf is uniquely suited to audio because of the gratifying sound of the chains catching the disc. While listening to a live round, I can hear the quality of a putt simply by the way it rings the chains. It is equally telling to hear the failure of a low putt catching metal or the rejection of a band hit. In general, I feel like the commentators chosen by the Disc Golf Network in particular do a pretty good job painting the picture with both the call and the color. I, for one, absolutely love to hear Ian Anderson call out the disc molds. I don't think Brody has even been around this sport long enough to throw shade on this subject. If I'm relying on the audio and Ian tells me Drew Gibson is throwing a buzz right after Calvin threw an eagle on a 400-foot tunnel, I'm totally impressed and I can envision the shot in my head. Disc selection is a critical part of our game, unique to the sport, and unlike any comparison to club selection in traditional golf. As a competent participant in this sport, it is additionally impressive to me to know that, for example, Eagle just laid down a 700-foot roller with a PD2, while I know my noodle arm couldn't even get that disc to stand up in a headwind. Josh, your thoughts?
There's two parts to this, right? You have the first one about how much work should the commentators be doing, and the second part is about the disc selection and whether or not that should be talked about. I'm going to go in reverse order, actually. I want to tackle the disc selection because I've been thinking a lot about this. And I think that the last sentence actually disproves Hans's argument. He says, as a competent participant in the sport, and here's where I say that's the exact reason we probably should quit using disc names as the regular term. Because no sport that is a professional sport that has a large viewership audience is made up exclusively or even a majority by players, right? The majority of NFL fans don't play football. The majority of NBA fans don't play basketball except for maybe the most casual of pickup rounds. So when you throw disc golf up on ESPN, you shouldn't expect the most of the fans to know what a PD2 is or a buzz or an eagle. They could very quickly learn the comparable terms of, and especially as there are more disc manufacturers, like if we get a Viking sponsored disc player up there, I've got no clue what any of those names are. The reason we know these names is because it's pretty standard manufacturers who are at the top. It's Prodigy, it's Innova, it's Discraft, it's Discmania. Like very just an MVP now. An MVP. I knew I was forgetting one.
Dynamic.
Dang it. Now I don't want to throw shade.
You're insulting everybody.
I haven't seen Dynamic on lead card for a while. No shade of Dynamic. I haven't seen one in a while. Sorry guys. But MVP, for example, I don't know what a photon is. I know one of my buddies throws one. I got no clue what that doesn't mean anything to me though. So I think that's the issue, is that as you get more and more fans who don't play disc golf competitively, who don't obsess over every disc mold or company and manufacturer, that you have to create a system that is more relatable and universalized that everybody can understand. And if it means occasionally you're like, oh yeah, Ricky's putting with a whale this weekend, which is a really deep putter for the glide, or Drew Gibson just threw his buzz, a straight neutral mid-range on a 550-foot hole. Sure, that's occasionally appropriate, but that's not how we grow the sport. That's not how you gain a larger captive audience.
Yeah, it's like it's more for the insiders. You're giving this like thing to the insiders, but it does make it more difficult to kind of understand what's going on if that context isn't given. I hadn't thought about that before, but I find that a very compelling argument. And I think the fact is that right now, a lot of disc golf fans are players and do have that familiarity, but you can't assume it. I mean, my mom and stepdad watch disc golf, like on the Disc Golf Network sometimes. And I guarantee you, they know nothing about any of the names of any of the discs. But I think, if the commentators are talking about, wow, Drew Gibson is throwing a mid-range here, a slower disc, and he's still getting it to go as far as somebody who used a fairway driver, I think people can, grasp that fairly quickly. But disc names are a little bit, they're inscrutable, honestly. If you're not saying what it is, like, oh, that was a Buzz versus a PD2, like, even I have to think about, wait, like, what's the speed of a PD2? Like, what's the, like, I'm, consider myself pretty well versed in this stuff. So thinking that's a great point, Josh. I'll tackle the audio side of things. I mean, here's the thing. I don't disagree with what Hans is saying about wanting to have like a rich audio experience. However, it's a separate thing. Most people, I think we can say, are watching the Disc Golf Network and watching the actual video feed. They're not just listening to it. 95%. So while I appreciate that it's helpful to have like a kind of richer, more descriptive audio style, radio style broadcast, I think that has to be a separate thing. Otherwise, you're like making the experience worse for all of the people who are watching. And like maybe it's slightly better for those few people that are only listening. So that's kind of how I look at that. And, not that there can't be a balance, but you have to assume a little Jomez in the background there for us. You have to assume that that people are watching on their television or on their phone, and that you don't want to overly describe what people are seeing.
I would absolutely listen to a audio only stream where you have one or two commentators who call it like it's a radio show, and that's on the Disc Golf Network. That's just available. I would 100% use that on Fridays while I'm still at work. So, but I agree. I don't want that to be the reason I am less inclined to watch it on Sunday during final round, because I feel like the commentators call for radio and not for TV. So
it would actually be, I think, surprisingly easy to set up a stream that's just audio. Or like at least, you could also just duplicate the stream that is going out to the world, and like you'd have a video stream, but it would be designed for audio first. So the commentators would be describing everything as though you were not watching. It's actually a very interesting concept. I don't know how much demand there really is for that. And like, do you want to pay people to do an audio broadcast? But if people demand it, then it might happen.
It's true.
Next one. You want to pick one?
Yeah. I've got one from Frank here that we actually chatted a little bit about off air after D-Glow that I think is an important question both for D-Glow and for this weekend. Maybe I'm not in the right places, but I haven't seen anything about how much the fans were in the way on the fairways and greens at D-Glow. I feel though that if this were an NT, there'd be posts by players on all social media platforms how the event wasn't professional. A little bit of double standard questioning there from Frank, but I think Frank hit the nail on the head. Spectator control at D-Glow was a disaster. There were the people on the greens. There was one hole, I can't remember at this point, where they would throw downhill. The spectators were told to stay in the tree line, and then as soon as the shot went off, they all stepped into the fairway and like stuck their head out
to watch.
On the hole 13, where they just throw the Plinko shot over the top, Kevin Jones disc was starting to roll back and like hit a spectator's bag. It was not great, not great at all. So I'm interested to see how it happens here at Ledgestone. It's a bigger tournament staff, obviously, but Northwoods Black is also going to be a tight wooded nightmare for spectators.
Yeah, and this is part of the thing that like has to get considered. For all the people who are talking about, oh man, the spectator control at Worlds is going to be a nightmare. Like, how are they going to deal with the Ford? It's going to be insane. There's no way they can make it happen. Actually, it went really well. It went really well. Like, they did a great job because they had people in charge who were clear, who said, you can't go there, get down from there, go back over there. What was her name?
Noelle,
thank you.
Yep.
Shout out to Noelle, who should just get hired as a full-time person. I don't know if she would want to take this job, but if she does, like, go on the road and you are the spectator, like, crowd control person. Because it was very, very obvious that same standard of, like, telling people where they could and could not be was happening at D-Glow, and it was like, it looked sloppy too. That's the thing. Not even just that there's like times where someone could get hit by a disc or it could like affect the competition, but it's just like there's just like people spamming all over the place in the fairways, and it doesn't look good. So I know that this is like such a new problem to have. Like, TDs have not experienced having these kind of spectator levels at their events until this year. However, I think quickly, like, the Pro Tour needs to establish standards about how this gets done and make sure that it's a priority, because it looks bad on TV, if nothing else. And like, there's just like inappropriate moments where players interact or fans interacting with players in inappropriate ways. And like, there has to be a little bit more of a separation between the competitors and the spectators. And it doesn't mean that they have to be banished to, bleachers 50 yards away, but I think it needs to be more clear when they're allowed to be like up along the fairways and when they need to stay back because of the risk that a disc goes over in their direction.
And if any of you Upshot listeners are hearing this and thinking, I talked to a player during a round. Don't do it again. Stop it. It's not the time and place. Do you know, is Ledgestone charging for spectators? We forgot to ask Nate. I haven't seen anything.
I'd have to look it up. I assume so.
I would think. I don't know. But
I don't think they charged at Worlds in 2019. And maybe you had to pay for parking if you wanted to park, but I don't think there was. I mean, I literally just walked onto the course and no one even like looked at me. I was media, but like still, no one even asked me why I was there. Like, disc golf's weird, man. Like, still a lot of times where you just kind of walk out there and no one has anything to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, if they're expecting 2,000 fans out there, I'm interested to see what that strategy looks like, and because I think that a weekend done well means that we could ask Nate and say, Nate, what exactly makes the weekend go well for spectators? What are the universal rules? Worlds did it. How are you doing it? What's going well? If it's a disaster, I think it's absolutely going to be newsworthy as well, because it's a crisis then and a warning to other TDs that you better have this figured out before your weekend comes around.
All right. Here's one from John. Kale LaVisca spoke about striving for, quote, balance at the Airborne Preserve Tournament. I heard him talk about a balance of the kinds of the shots the pros have to execute to be successful, as well as the balance of holes being open versus tight. However, I noticed that only 3 holes played above par over all 3 rounds, and really only holes 5 and 9 gave the top tier players any problems. Do you believe that there should be a, quote, balance in the difficulty that the holes present to the pros? On a balanced track, should Kale and other course designers try to deliver a spread of difficult, moderate, and must-get holes? Or is par just a number and the real competition is relative to the performance of the players?
Yes and no. Like, I think I don't have a problem with a hole playing under par. I like at all. I think that's fine. What I want to see, like hole 18, for example, is they're the decisions that allow you to choose whether you're going to go for eagle, birdie, or par. And as you choose to go for a more aggressive score, the risk of punishment goes up as you do so. That's what I want to see. Hole 14, for example, did play just a touch over par at 0.17 strokes, but the spread is what I like to see. It's 29% birdie, 40% par, and then 30% bogey or worse. It's not so much that I'm like, oh, I want a hole that's going to punish players so that they can't get to it. Like, my appeal of Northwoods Gold and hole 12, I think we decided, or whichever the long crazy hole is, isn't necessarily that I do like it because it's really hard and it makes the players work. But I think the appeal is you have decisions that have to be made along the way. If I want to go for birdie, here's my risk that comes with it. If I lay up for par, here's the safety that comes and the shot that comes second. And I can then choose what style of shot I make based on that kind of how aggressive I want to attack and with the risk understanding. My problem is when there are too many holes that are go for birdie, and if you mess up, you get par. That's what I don't like. And then of course we've talked about like 6 holes in the woods, 6 holes in the open, 6 holes with OB, challenging different shot styles. All that I think is really important. But when we're just talking about score, I want aggressive birdie attempts to be punished with bogeys.
Yeah, and I just like interesting design and a variety of shot making required. Like, there should probably be a par 3 or 2 on every course that is very gettable and that requires a certain shot shape. Not necessarily just far, but, can you throw the tight forehand here? If you do, you're going to get rewarded with a birdie. If you don't, you're probably going to get a par. And then I think also you're going to have par 5s, which for the professional level players should be considered must get birdies most of the time. It's very rare for there to be a par 5 that feels like par is a good outcome. Now, obviously those holes exist, like 12, like that ultra long 1500 footer at the Preserve. And I'm okay with that. I do think that the goal shouldn't just be to have every hole be brutally difficult. Like, the goal should be to have it be fun and interesting. Like, birdies are fun. So you don't want there to be no birdies out there. I think you want to require that players throw good shots and a variety of shots. And that's going to mean that sometimes there's going to be holes where it's, it does feel a little bit more birdie or die. But I think there should be other holes where par is a good outcome. And so I think it's a cop out to say whatever, par is just a number, just play better than the other competitors. Because, like, yes, that's true, but that's not really how anybody thinks about it. Like, when I go out to the course, I'm not just like trying to beat the players I'm competing with, like my buddies. I'm trying to get birdies. And, like, it's a lot more fun to get a birdie than to get a par. If they get a bogey and I get a par, sure, I'm up by a stroke. But, like, that's not what's fun. It's fun to get a birdie. And so I think you need to have that in mind and, create fun and interesting holes where often birdie is a possibility. It should at least be a possibility. Otherwise, the course is too hard.
I also think it's strategically placing your order of holes, because hole 17 at the Preserve, if that hole is number 1, it's boring. Like, it's a standard shot that every single person birdies. You know why it was interesting? Because it was at the end of the course, followed by an 18 that was gettable. That means Eagle goofed it and hits that early tree and creates a drama but he knows. Gannon Burr, for example, laying up, knowing that he's got that hole 18 coming up that's scoreable. I mean, it's also just about how you order the holes and where you put them, because that takes a routine par 3 that any pro in the world would be able to hit 9 times out of 10, if not 99 times out of 100, that cost Eagle the tournament. So, and
it would also be bad if 17 was 18.
Yes, that's also bad.
Like, you want 18 to have some teeth and be interesting, not just be a routine birdie for most players. But I agree. I think hole sequencing definitely plays a role in, like, making things fun and interesting. All right, last one here from Jordan. Regarding your conversation about young up-and-comers in MPO, did you guys notice the finish of Michigan local Luke Taylor at Deglow? I think the kid is 15 years old and tied with Garrett Gerthy and Nicola Castro. It was only 2 strokes behind Calvin. With this kind of young skill, I think Luke Taylor is going to be a big name in the coming years when, or if, he goes on tour. I'm sure there are young players similar to him in most regions of the country as well. The depth of talent in disc golf is absolutely exploding, especially as we have more generations of kids brought up playing on a serious level.
You're right. As more kids are playing at a serious level, there is going to be more depth. And we're already seeing that with Gannon Burr, Gavin Rathbun, Kyle Klein, Heather Young, Haley King. I mean, we see it. We see it already. The big thing, though, that I think is maybe a consideration to keep in mind. And I don't want to take anything away from Luke Taylor. Luke Taylor finished 20th at 14 under par. I definitely don't want to, and he dropped 10 places in the final round. So he was in great position going after round 2. So not to take anything away from Luke Taylor, but we've had this conversation a lot with local pros and still do to an extent in the past, 5 years ago, where we'd say, oh, we're going to X course. And Dallin Blanchard, for example, at the Fort in the Utah Open, we're like, local pro, very highly rated. I mean, he's top 20 in the world in terms of ratings. Mm-hmm. And we're like, does he have a chance at making it big? And, we're going to have that talk now with all the young guys instead of the local pros. It's my area's 15-year-old is going to shoot really well at his home course. He's the next big thing. He may be. I might be wrong. He may go on tour and he may kill it. But I think that as the young field becomes more saturated, and let's say Luke Taylor doesn't go on tour until he's 18 or 19, there are so many names right now that we've never heard who are going to go on tour in 4 years that are going to be excellent disc golf players. So, Luke Taylor may be the next big thing. I'm not saying he's not, but I need more than a 20th place finish to say, yes, for sure, he's the next big thing, given the saturation of the field that's going to come up.
Let me give you the Luke Taylor hype, though.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about Luke Taylor, so.
Finished third at U.S. Amateurs in June.
Okay.
As a 15-year-old. Easily won the under 15 division of the PDGA. I shouldn't say easily. He won by a stroke. He won the Junior Worlds under 15 division. And immediately following that, he took cash. So he went pro. He took cash for the first time at the CCR Open, an A tier, where he finished 5th. Then he finished 20th at Great Lakes Open. And then at a B tier, the Paradise City Open last weekend, he played MPO and finished one shot off the lead. So finished second. So, I mean, at that age, to have that kind of success, to win Junior Worlds, to choose to go pro now and not even, go on to play more Junior Worlds in the, under 18 division. I think he's got the chops. He's 991 rated, I think. Yeah, 991.
Okay.
You're still right. Where do you go from here? Do you keep getting better? Probably, but it's not a lock. But I mean, this is the kind of pedigree that you would expect to see from somebody who goes on to big things. Winning Junior Worlds, competing at a high level with players 10, 15 years older than you. So anyway, good stuff.
Yeah, and Gannon Burr, he's 1022 rated, same age.
Wow.
So
exciting. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the Ledgestone action, everybody. I will see you in the FPO broadcast booth for the Disc Golf Network this weekend alongside Val Jenkins. So hopefully you get a chance to tune in and watch some of the action over there. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on the Upshot. Don't miss our subscriber bonus segment. We're talking about non-manufacturer sponsorships.